Hello, Watch Forest Focus. The final game of the season is upon us as Nottingham Forest head to Turf Moor to take on Burnley in their last Premier League fixture before the summer. Joining me to discuss that game in full and how he thinks Burnley might react to their relegation, which Forest are hopefully going to officially avoid at the weekend, is Matt Scrafton, the Burnley reporter for the Burnley Express. Matt, good to have you with us. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you, Matt. Thanks for having me.
No, good to have you with us. Grateful for your time. We always start these opposition view podcasts just asking the correspondent to kind of give us a verdict on the season as a whole for Burnley in this case. It looks like it's been a funny old season for Burnley. You probably went into it with high hopes, and it's not panned out how you would have hoped for, I guess. How's it been overall?
Yeah, I think that sums it up quite neatly, to be honest. Obviously, speaking to me just a few days after relegation was confirmed, clearly been a massive disappointment. As you rightly said, after how well they did last season in Victor Company's first season in charge in the Championship, winning the title, 101 points, so much optimism going into this season. Perhaps some supporters got a little bit carried away. Thought they could finish in mid-table, perhaps replicate the success of a Brighton or a Brentford. They thought maybe they could follow that trend. Again, that was probably a minority of fans. I think most would have taken 17th place as a successful season. And while those inside the club were quite keen to temper expectations, I think they knew the gap is widening between the two divisions, as we've seen this season with. It looks like the three teams that came up are going to go down. Obviously, that's not confirmed yet. As I said, the club are pretty realistic. It's going to be difficult, but I don't think anyone sort of could predict just how difficult it's been. No one expected them to collect just 24 points from the 37 games so far. Only win 5 games all season, and 3 of those came against Luton and Sheffield United. I mean, it's so far off that required level, and I don't think anyone saw that coming. Because of how good they were last season, but also, they out of the 3 teams in the relegation zone, they were the one that did invest quite heavily, especially in terms of in Burnley's history, because Burnley's history under Sean Dyche obviously were quite restrained in that regard. But this season, they obviously did invest. I think it was around just under 100 million. So yeah, it's clearly not worked out.
I watched Match of the Day at the weekend after the Spurs game. They basically, the pundits in question, I think it was Alan Shearer and maybe Micah Richards, I'm not sure. They pinned it pretty squarely on the style of play, saying it was overly ambitious and Kompany should have adapted as the season went on. Do you think that's fair, or was it the only way for Burnley to play with the players that they'd invested in, as you mentioned there?
That's. I think Alan Shearer's been quite consistent throughout the season. He's been the one pointing out the mistakes from playing out the back, which is fair. But I would say it's a bit of a myth. I think it has been overrated a little bit by the national media, which that's not a criticism. Obviously, they don't watch every minute of every Burnley game, but it has been one factor of many. I mean, as I'm sure seasons where Nottingham Forest have been relegated in the past, it's never just one reason, is it? When a team goes down, there's always a lot of factors that have gone into it. Clearly, it's not helped. And we've all, I'm sure we've all seen on Match of the Day that the sort of the high-profile errors, the goalkeeping errors, the playing out from the back. But that is how Kompany played. That's how he played last season, and it worked so successfully. So it would have been strange for him to do a complete 180 on that and all of a sudden play, longer ball, Sean Dyche ball, perhaps. I mean, that was never going to happen. But I think there is a fair criticism in they were a little naive at the start of the season. It was they did try and play the same way as they did it last season, which that was a bit naive. You've got to expect a big difference between playing teams in the Championship than you are in the Premier League. They were a bit unlucky that of their first 6 games, they played Man City, Villa, Tottenham, Newcastle, I think Man United in there as well. They were a bit unlucky with that, and I think they were, clearly punished. And it was, they conceded 3s, 4s, and 5s during that opening to the season, so it's really difficult. But as I said, it's one of several factors. I mean, if you look at recruitment during the summer, which I touched on before, the money they spent, they went down the route of buying younger players that they could build, develop, and sell on at a later date, which I think that's sensible. I think it's what most clubs do now, but I think they probably went a bit too extreme with that. They bought in 15 new players during the summer, so they really did not rip up, but a lot of the players that brought them success last season were either moved on or the loanees, such as Nathan Teller or Ian Matson, Taylor Howard Bellis. Obviously, they didn't come back. They couldn't get permanent deals over for them over the line. So the recruitment, I think, during the summer, that was a big issue. I think the club will hold their hands up. It didn't really go to plan with that. They went too heavy with the young players, and because of that, there was that naivety, the inexperience, and that was, highlighted right from the off at the start of the season. But Kompany has changed. He has adapted. He has made little, subtle tweaks. Yes, they're not going long ball, not direct, but they have adapted to the season's worn on. So it's to suggest that they're playing the same way now as, Alan Shearer sort of suggested himself that they're playing the same way now as they did against Manchester City on the open day. That's just incorrect, because on the open day against Man City, they were, the two centre backs on the edge of the 6-yard box playing out from the back. That's what it was. Now it's a lot more sensible. They pick and choose their moments. They still play out from the back. That's, it's a fair observation. But they have adapted. So it would be wrong to say Burnley have been the same all season, because that's just not been the case. And, between sort of April and March and April, they have resembled a pretty decent Premier League side. It's come too late, clearly, but for the last 2 months or so, they do look like they have adapted. They are a Premier League side now. It's, as I said, it's come too little, too late. But they drew away to West Ham, they drew away to Chelsea with 10 men, they drew away to Man United, drew with Brighton, beat Brentford as well. So the last 2 months, they are a decent side now, but it's just come far too late in the day.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that recent form and the interesting dynamic going into Sunday. I keep saying Saturday, it's Sunday. There is a small scenario where Forest could go down with a mad swing, and part of that would involve Burnley scoring quite a few goals. What are you expecting from them after being relegated psychologically? Will they really front up, or do you think they might be a little bit on the beach, to use a cliche?
It's a strange one, isn't it? Because you don't really know, do you? It depends how the players have reacted this week. But knowing Ritz and Kompany, and we all know what he's like. He's a man of integrity, isn't he? So he'll certainly be taking it seriously. Whether that transpires and the players, all it takes, isn't it? Sort of mentally to switch off 1%, and that might make a difference. So you just don't know. And it'd be interesting to see if he makes any changes with an eye maybe to next season. I doubt it. I think he'll take it as if it's any other game. But it will be a strange game. Obviously, there was for the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks that bit of buzz that this game could be a one of those dramatic final day deciders. Obviously, that's not transpired with Burnley's defeat to Tottenham last week. But it's let's be honest, for Burnley, it's meaningless now. I doubt the stadium will be full. There's been talk among some of the fans whether they're even going to go to the game or not. I suspect in the end most will probably be there. A final day just to finish the season. But it will certainly have a strange feel to it. And but yeah, it's hard to say exactly what sort of Burnley we'll see. But if we do see the Burnley we've seen for the last month or two, then they'll give Forest a good game.
Which players were we looking out for? You've got talented players. You've got Aaron Muric in goal, who we know from a pretty unsuccessful loan spell at the City Ground, who's coming in late. It looks like he's actually done well, apart from a few big ricks. But who else should we be watching out for of interest?
Yeah, again with Muric, people will observers from the outside will see those big mistakes he made against Everton and Brighton in back-to-back games. I think he's terrible. He's been really poor, but he actually that's another factor why Burnley has struggled, because he did so well last season. He was in the Championship team of the season. He was excellent, and for some reason, Vince Kompany thought he needed an upgrade, and James Trafford didn't really work out. Clearly got a lot of potential. Clearly going to be a good goalkeeper in the long term. But right now, Muric is the better keeper, and he just despite the calls from the fans to bring Muric back in, he was very stubborn with that. I think it was at the end of March or April when he finally made the call, and Muric has been better. So yeah, he's. But in terms of the standout players, Sander Berg has won the recent Player of the Season award with both the players' vote and the fans' votes. That's quite an easy one. He's been very good since making the move from Sheffield United, which was obviously quite a big move at the time, coming up with Sheffield United, and they obviously some issues behind the scenes sold their best players, but he's been excellent in midfield, a really sort of tall, rangy, strong midfielder. Really good to watch, even as a neutral. Like when he gets on the ball and he's driving from box to box, he's a really good player to watch. But also Wilson Odobert, a left winger, a 19-year-old French winger, really exciting, tricky player. Because of his age, he can be inconsistent, which I touched upon. That was one of the issues Burnley had this season with the young players. But I think he's probably done better than Vincent Kompany anticipated. He's been excellent on the left wing, really exciting. Like I said, some games you might not notice him for a while. He just drifting out of games, but when he's on it, when he's got a bit of space, he's certainly very dangerous.
I was going to ask you about the forwards as well. You seems like you've got a lot of talent there. Maybe are they a bit inconsistent? I've seen Fofana come in and do really well, and he's not playing. Lyle Foster looks like a really good player, and he's had his off the field issues that have set him back, and it's good to see him playing again. Are they going to threaten Forest? If I don't know if both are going to play, but can they cause Forest problems at the back, do you think?
I suspect it'll be Lyle Foster that will play. He's probably the better player, and as you touched upon that, when he was out for, I think it was 8 weeks, he was out for with the issues with the mental health. Obviously that took priority, but from Burnley's perspective, I mean, they dealt with it very well. They it's company, they clubbed out with that situation very well. But Foster, out for 8 weeks at the time, he was the top scorer. I think he was realistically their only sort of striker. So to having him with that 8 weeks, that was another sort of big key problem for them. But they have struggled for goals. I mean, I think Foster's got 4 or 5. Fofana's got 4 since coming in January. And he did hit the ground running. I think he's scored 4 in 8 at the start, but then since then hasn't scored all, and his performances have really tailed off. And I'm not particularly sure, maybe on his attitude, his mentality as well. Not sure if he's maybe was here for the fight sort of thing. So I suspect he's a good talented player, but I suspect Lyle Foster will play up front on Sunday, as you said.
Obviously, it has been a difficult season for Burnley. They've conceded a lot of goals. Are there any patterns in them, areas that Forest can exploit around, I don't know, set pieces, counter-attacks, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, there's been a few. There's been 2 or 3. Clearly, the one we touched upon already is that they are susceptible to mistakes. They're not as bad on that on that front as they were early on in the season. But that there has been a case throughout the season where opposition teams would come to Turf Moor, not necessarily do a lot, but would just wait, just sort of stick in there and wait, because you will get chances. You not necessarily even have to do anything to get those chances. I mean, there was one particular game early on in the season, I think it was back in the end of 2023, where Crystal Palace came to Turf Moor under Roy Hodgson, didn't even try and score. What Roy Hodgson was like, it was sit back, get a 0-0 and see what happens with set pieces. Didn't even try and score. They ended up winning the game 2-0. Yeah, so they didn't try and score, didn't try and win, yet they still won the game, because that's the way of doing it against Burnley. You just wait for something to happen. Might be the goalkeeper, might be the defender. But as I said, on that front, to be fair, they're not as bad as they have been early in the season. At the start of the season, they were very susceptible to counter-attacks. Again, that is one thing Kompany has improved. He has tweaked and adapted with that. But again, against the top side in the division, but they were getting ripped apart at times, and it was quite a sort of familiar trend where they would start games quite well, especially at home with the atmosphere, and they would start first 10, 15 minutes, they'd miss a chance or two, and then as soon as the other team got a chance, whether it be a Man City or Tottenham or Villa, they would take it, and then they'd fall to pieces, and they would quickly go under and concede to another one. Again, they have improved on that. They're not as bad on that front, but that has been a trend of sorts this season, and set pieces as well. Better since Much has come in place of Trafford. Trafford was a bit weak on set pieces, but I think on the record of Premier League, the worst 2 or 3 sides for the goals conceded from set pieces this season as well. So that's another factor to this season.
No one's as bad as us at defending set pieces, although we have got a little bit better. We haven't touched wood. I probably jinxed it there, but yeah, we have got a little bit better in that area. Just before I ask you about Forest, just a quick word for the sponsors of Trent Navigation. Say if you aren't going to Turf Moor and you want to enjoy the final day, then get down the Nav and you can watch all the action that's televised, which I haven't seen it yet, but I can't imagine it's going to be our game. But it'll be a good day, and hopefully it's pretty chilled out, and we can enjoy staying in the Premier League. Right. How much have you seen of Forest? I'm not sure if you've seen them a lot, but what have you made of them from what you have seen?
Yeah, I can't. I've got to be honest, not seen a lot of them. Obviously, I was at the first game between the 2 sides at the City Ground. I've seen the odd game on Sky. I think I watched the Man City game a few weeks ago where I thought Forest did well. I'm always wary of giving too much an opinion on sides I've not watched. But if you want an outside view, I'll say it doesn't look like there's been a huge difference. I don't know if it's right or wrong between Steve Cooper and Nuno Espirito Santo. Also, the results of, is it 4 or 5 wins in 17 or 18? It looks like.
Yeah, results are very comparative. Style of plays have been different. I think we've swapped was going to say we sort of one set of problems for another. We haven't really solved some of the problems, but we have been better going forwards. I mean, do you see? I guess you see when you have seen them like threat in attack. If you saw the City game, then we do have talent up front. I guess you'd say.
Yeah, obviously, with Gibbs White and Hudson-Odoi, obviously he scored that goal against Burnley where he just stuck in the top corner out of nowhere. And that's probably been a similar trend this season against Burnley, where teams will just do something, real quality out of nowhere. But yeah, focusing on that game, that was obviously one game that probably sticks in Kompany's craw a little bit, because it was one they felt they could have won at the time. They'd just come off the back of that run of tough games, and they targeted this game as one they could get something from, and hopefully draw sort of Forest into a relegation scrap. And obviously there's controversy, with Lau Foster's goal being ruled out, Sandberg's punished for the handball, which was one of those instances where a week or two later, the PGML get in touch and say, oh, actually that was wrong. But I mean, Kompany will say they've been unlucky with referees this season, which they have, but every club has. I know Forest have as well. I know Wolves have been unlucky as well. So I don't hold too much weight into that. Well, as I said, when you've got 24 points from 37 games, then I don't think you've got too much of an argument with that. But obviously on that day, if they'd won that one, if they won 2-1, then it could have been different. But every club can say that throughout the season, can't they? So
it was a weirdly interesting game, actually, thinking about it, because both teams, you reference your start. Our first games were we played City away, Arsenal away, United away, Chelsea away. So we had 4 awful games, and we had 2 home games against Sheffield United and Burnley. And the feeling at the time was we have to win both of those, or Steve Cooper's going to be in big trouble. And we actually played you after playing Chelsea, and it was sort of, now I reflect on it, was slightly semi-pivotal, I guess. So yeah, interesting. Looking forward with Burnley, should I say? I mean, do you see them bouncing straight back now? They finished the season pretty strongly. Do you go into optimism into next season with optimism?
I think so. Yeah, I think you have to if Kompany stays, which it looks like, there's no indication that he's not going to leave. They've obviously stuck by him all season. The club were very adamant that whatever happens, if we go down, Kompany will be staying. So given what he did last season, 101 points, you have to be optimistic. I think obviously it'd be interesting to see what happens with the playoffs. If Burnley fans probably want a Leeds or Southampton to go up to get them out of the picture. I think Luton and Sheffield United, out of the 3, I think Burnley will fancy their chances out of the 3 to bounce straight back up. But obviously there's still so much up in the air. I mean, there's a bit of concern about recruitment. There's some of the club, in the recent financial accounts that the club sort of said they're going to have to sell, which most clubs do when they go down. But I think Burnley might have to sell a bit more than most. So it'll depend on that change. But they have got the weird position where they've got 13 players out on loan, and a lot of those players were players that did so well last season. So do they come back in and carry on from where they left off last season? But there's also that element where they've sort of been frozen out this season, and that's clearly not going to be too happy about that. So there are a lot of unknowns, a lot of question marks. But unlike last time they went down, I think Kompany was left with 5 or 6 players when he came in from Anderlecht, whereas this season they've got, I think they've got 30 or 40 players. They've got a real good core squad. So even though they will lose some of the best players, I think Sandberg might go. I think Odegaard might go. And I could see them losing some of their experienced heads. Jay Rodriguez is out of contract. Charlie Taylor, Goodmanson. So yeah, it's going to be a big summer. It's another big summer, which is strange for Burnley because they've got used to Sean Dyche, where it was 1-2 signings every summer. It was very sort of stable. Everything it was building on last season. Whereas now there were 15 signings last summer. As I said, when Kompany came in, he only had 5-6 players. Now every summer it seems like they're getting used to wholesale change. I'm not sure it'll be wholesale change this summer, but it will be interesting to see who comes in and out. But I do think they have got that core already there. They should be at minimum, you'd like to think, in the playoff hunt. But I think there will be confidence that they can maybe not do as well as they did last season, but certainly finish in an automatic promotion place.
Yeah, I do really like Sandberg. I was hoping we would sign him or Hamer, ironically, who went to Sheffield United. I think they are top talent, and hopefully not that we steal your players, but hopefully we look at alternative players from the Championship next season from a Forest point of view. Just lastly, before I let you go, how far off, or how big a gap do you think it is really between 19th Burnley, 17th Forest, or the teams around there? Is that gap so considerable that it's really difficult to breach, or do you think Burnley weren't a million miles off ultimately in the end?
It's difficult to say because obviously, the obvious elephant in the room is the points deduction that's made it tighter than it would have been. So Vince Kompany says himself that the gap is bigger than it's ever been. But I can only look at those games. The game against Forest when it was a draw against. They lost both games against Everton, but they were close. They were tight games. So I know anything could happen in an individual game, but in terms of a trend, I don't think Burnley were miles off. And if they had, it's easier to say in hindsight, isn't it? But if they started the season as they did from sort of March, April onwards, then they would have had a chance, and they would have been right in there with a chance. But as I keep coming back to, when you've got 24 points, I mean, you're going to get relegated any season with 24 points, aren't you? So they can't really have any complaints. And I think, a lot of soul searching will have to be done this summer. Obviously, the plan will be to come back straight away, and it'd be interesting to see if that happens, how they approach it next time around. But at least I suppose companies always want to look at the positive. They have got that experience in the bank. But there's a lot to learn from this season.
Excellent. If you have enjoyed that, do us a favour. Excuse me. Hit like, hit subscribe. You can become a channel member and do give us a lovely review on iTunes if you can. Matt, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time and wish you well for next season and beyond. And sort of not too fussed about Saturday's game, Sunday's game, as long as you don't absolutely blow us out the water or something crazy doesn't happen. But yeah, good to have you with us.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Have a good day, everyone. We shall be back when we put this out. This will come out on Saturday, so yeah, you'll be listening to this on Saturday. We'll be back tomorrow with a post-match show. So have a good day, enjoy the weekend, and we shall see you soon.